Go ahead.
Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal. We ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Irene. That was perfect. And I want to say that I'm just so thrilled to have Anne here today and tonight for those who are on the East Coast. I've heard so much about her, and she actually was a part of our first conference without me and Irene knowing, because she was helping out in the background with all of the filming, and she's just one of the most beautiful people. I'm so excited to have her here on the Zoom meeting, but I hope that maybe someday she'll also be a part of our physical meeting in Phoenix, which is what was supposed to happen today. But I'll go ahead and read her bio. Anne Albers is a popular author, spiritual instructor, angel communicator, and modern mystic. Her free weekly Messages from Anne and the Angels reach an international audience with inspiration and tips to help you stay tuned in and turned on. She loves to help people experience the power and beauty of their own soul and develop a blissful connection with spirit. Learn more at www.visionsofheaven.com, and I'll type that into the chat box. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Anne Albers.
Thank you so much. Yes, I love this organization. I had a friend who was doing some filming at their last conference who said, why don't you drop by and help out maybe? And so I was quietly in the back and completely impressed by the work that's done here. And to all who have lost children, I want to express sincere condolences. As an angel communicator and a medium, I know that there's probably no more challenging thing you can go through in life. And I'm not going to give you any platitudes about it because that's ridiculous. But what I do want to help you do, from my experience, is share a little bit about what it is like to die, what it's like in heaven, and then how you as parents can continue your journey, since I know that's one of the main premises of Helping Parents Heal, is to help you continue your journey with your dear ones in spirit, to keep them part of the family, and to learn how to interact and relate to them in a whole new way. But, you know, certainly not to, quote, lose them, because that's not possible, whether we feel it or not. So I'll just dive right in. I grew up in a traditional religious background, but to make a long story short, I was an avionics engineer, and I felt I had a different calling. I started praying, you know, God, I just want to wake up happy, go to bed grateful, and make a living helping people. And thus began a series of dreams, coincidences. And over the course of the next several years, my entire life fell apart and got put back together with me talking to spirit. And it is amazing what can happen as we let go, as Joseph Campbell said, of the life we had planned, to make room for the one that's waiting for us. It's one of my favorite quotes by him. Because I think all of us start out life with an idea of how it should look. And certainly if you're parents, you have that idea from the moment your child is born. And then something happens, like the death of a child, and everything changes. And at first it looks so devastating, you don't know how you can go on. But then, just like spring follows winter, just like nature continuously resurrects itself, there is the possibility of a new type of relationship with your loved ones. And this is what we're here for. Before I go into that, though, I've had the privilege of hearing accounts of what it's like to die from thousands of people in heaven over the years. And without exception, they've all talked about the fact that the minute, the second they transitioned into that light, all pain was forgotten, all sorrow was forgotten. There was a sense of peace. There was a sense of bliss and joy and remembering who they were. You know, the angels say what happens when you go in the light is you no longer can block love. We are loved beyond our capacity to comprehend by whatever you consider to be the source to be, by the heavens, by our relatives in spirit. And on earth, for a variety of reasons, conditioning, busyness, you name it, we tend to kind of say, okay, you know, love, yeah, I'll have some time to love when I sit and eat with my family, or I'll have some time to love when I pet my dog, or when I view nature, but I've got things to do. All of a sudden, when you're in that light, the love that's there for you all along starts flooding you. And I once had the privilege of, I had just done an energy transmission, and that light of heaven opened up in midair like a pinprick of light right in front of me, about 20 feet up and above me. And it started opening and opening, just like the tunnel you see in the movies. And it started to reach towards me. And I was just standing there with my mouth hanging open. And as that light touched me, it was alive. It went into my soul. I felt it loving and accepting parts of my spirit that I didn't even know needed love and acceptance. Parts that I tucked away. You know, it wasn't even an intellectual thing. I could just feel it permeate my whole being. And needless to say, I probably cried for days after that, because I had never experienced that kind of love on this earth. And I think I was given that experience so that I could share that with you, that I was only touched by that light. Your children have gone into it, immersed themselves in it, felt love permeate every cell, every corner of their psyche. So whether they were happy or troubled here on this earth, in that light, they will be accepted and loved. And I was crying thinking of it still, beyond anything you could ever imagine. So the death process, while the earthly side of it can look pretty crazy, you know, depending on how that happens, the minute they're in that light, there's a healing grace and a beauty and a bliss that's beyond reason. There's an understanding as they go into the light that yes, they're transitioning, but it's going to be okay. They eventually emerge in whatever they consider paradise to be, greeted by relatives. You know, the angels are kind of funny. They said quite often they land by the lake. You know, there's a beautiful Lake Tahoe looking thing that I've seen many times. There are other beautiful scenes. They're greeted by relatives. They're greeted by friends. They're greeted by angels. They are never, ever, ever alone. They're never lost, and they're never confused. And I can say that after 2 decades of doing readings, not once have I ever seen someone land in heaven and feel confused or lost. It's like a grand celebration when a soul comes home, because that is our natural home. We're here on this earth as an experience, as a classroom, so to speak, but heaven is our home. That leads to the question, what exactly is heaven? Well, it looks like an earthly version of paradise to most people, but it is just simply a dimension of reality in which you can't block love. You feel the love. You feel the love of your parents on earth. You feel the love of the people that you've met, that you've affected. You feel the love of whatever you consider the source to be, your angels, your relatives. Many have told me that it's just overwhelming. It's so much love. But just as we have, the angels say, think about it this way, you have radio programs and television programs, and those waves, radio waves, television waves, for every station are going through our walls. They're going through us. They're going through our computers, and we don't see them. They're just there. But the minute you grab your remote control or your radio or your computer and you tune in to a station, then you begin to see it or hear it. And likewise, heaven, I think of it as just a different station on the grand cosmic broadcast, where your loved ones can be standing right next to you in spirit, but simply on a frequency you can't see. So for example, on earth, we're a bit denser and slower in our vibration, but watch my hand. See, as you see it moving, it's at a faster and faster vibration, and you stop seeing it being so solid. Or if you've ever watched a hummingbird's wing, you know, I've taken pictures of hummingbirds. And at times you can't even see their wings. Now their wings are there, but they're just flapping so fast we can't see them. So your loved ones are simply on a vibration where everything's oscillating a lot faster. To them, it feels very solid, it feels real, but we just can't see them. Many times they're with you. I'm sure many of you on this call have experienced signs or dreams, not everybody. And now don't think that if you you don't experience signs or dreams or anything, that doesn't mean they're not there. I've had many kids in spirit say, well, I'm not doing the party tricks, or whatever it is. I'm not doing these little signs because I'm more busy helping my siblings or my friends or my parents. So it really depends on the personality. It depends on what they choose to focus on in heaven. Some are real characters and will turn on electronics and lights and televisions and give you songs in the grocery store, or and show up in dreams. And others don't, that's not their concern. They'd rather, in a sense, guide their loved ones and focus on that. So it does not mean they're not with you if you haven't received signs. It's real important that you know that. Also, one thing that you probably have heard, but I'll repeat it, bears repeating: when you're really grieving, it's a little harder to make contact at first, because here you are in a very sad vibration. Understandably, no one's going to talk you out of that, but they're in this bliss. So it's like two different radio stations, just different frequencies. And it's a little harder to make that match. They have to kind of slow their energy down a little bit, and we have to elevate our energy up until there's a match. And I'll talk more about that later. But those are some reasons why you might possibly not have made contact if you haven't yet. It does not mean they don't love you. A lot of people ask, is my kid mad at me? And honestly, over 20 years, I've never once heard a child in heaven say they're holding on to any anger, even if they were pissy, addicted. God knows, there's a lot of rebellious kids in heaven. But what the difference is in heaven is that they can see clearly. You can't block love. They can see that any upsets you guys had were really about you trying to love them and help them. They get it. They feel it. They've done a life review where they've not only seen everything, but they've understood it through your eyes. And so many kids have come and told me that they now understand themselves better because they could see themselves through your eyes. They could understand themselves better, how much you loved them. And that has helped them love themselves more in the other realm as well. So to just accept those things and know those things ahead of time will help you have a better relationship moving forward. Because if we hold on to feelings of guilt, or feelings that we didn't love enough, or we didn't say enough, or we shoulda, coulda, woulda, which is very human, so no one's going to fault you for it. But if we're hanging on to those, and by lower vibrational, I'm just saying it like a scientific fact, not a judgment. But if we hang on to those lower vibrational feelings like guilt and frustration and anger, or whatever it was at ourselves even, it's a little harder to reach them because they're up here in bliss. So one of the first things the kids in heaven would say that would help you relate to them better is, please let's let go of the guilt. And that's hard because I think almost every human being, shoot, I had guilt when my dog died, and these are your kids. So it's hard sometimes, but make a concentrated effort to say, okay, whatever I did or didn't do, they know I love them, because they do. They don't just know it intellectually anymore. They feel you. They feel you. They feel you deeply. They feel your heart. They feel your soul. They know you love them. So please, that's an assumption to make when you're working with your kids in heaven, because if you really can just tell yourself that, assume it. They know you love them. That's going to elevate your vibration already. Secondly, do they hear you? Yes, without question. They have a big joke in heaven that the Wi-Fi never goes down. Okay. Because, and I've done readings now for 20 something years, I forget, but when I started, we really didn't have Wi-Fi. And when Wi-Fi started becoming popular, everyone in heaven was so excited because now they can explain telepathy. Because what's happening when we telepathically contact our loved ones is our brain and our hearts are sending out electromagnetic signals. There are places doing research on this, starting to show that there are electromagnetic signals that, aren't as strong for us, but that our loved ones can pick up on, and vice versa. This is a Wi-Fi receiver. Dr. Joe Dispenza is starting to prove and study science that shows that when the energy goes up the spine, it physically pushes on the pineal gland, which is in the brain, and the pineal gland has little calcite crystals that stand on end like antennas. So we have biology that's wired to pick up on energetic signals. So I'm really happy to see that science is starting to nibble around the edges of this so it's not so woo-woo. But the folks in heaven say the Wi-Fi is fantastic, so they can always send you feelings, thoughts, sometimes words and pictures. So when you get a strong feeling that just won't go away and it nags you, have you ever had, like you just keep getting a thought over and over, I should call someone, I should do this, I should call someone. I have a joke that the folks in heaven will nag us until we get the signal. So you never have to worry about not getting your guidance. It's just a matter of, how long you get it before you listen, because it will come again and again and again and again. And it's one of those things. I'll give you an example from my life. I was once feeling that I was missing something in my diet, and I was struggling and trying to, instead of asking my angels, duh. So all of a sudden, a door started squeaking. So I oiled the door. Then my washer started squeaking. I had to have someone come in and oil the ball bearings. Then my car needed an oil change. And finally, it's like, oh my God, I need more oil in my diet. Bingo. So sometimes they'll even do humorous things like that to get the message through that they're trying to get through to you. You don't have to overthink it. You just tell them, I've asked you a question. I'm not getting the answer yet. Can you try another way? Can you try again? Can you try again? And they're very persistent, obviously, because they don't have to worry about jobs. They don't have to worry about any of the concerns that we have here on Earth. And they have tons of time, because their time is not like our time. They say that their time is always now. They're not worried about what's going to happen 2 days from now. They're in sync with you. They know when you're doing things, but they don't really worry so much about what's when. So they have time. So ask them, if you're not getting a message, say, please try harder. Instead of you feeling left out and like they're not getting through, just tell them. And if you get signals, tell them, I love that. I see that. Acknowledge it. Because when you acknowledge something, oh my gosh, that song that just came on reminds me of you. If you did that, I'd like more of that, please. I'd love that. I have one lady, and she didn't lose a child, but she lost her husband, and he kept trying all sorts of crazy things to get through to her. And she was like, don't flash the lights. Don't ding the doorbell, and he kept coming through Moose saying, well, what do you want me to do? Because he kept trying these different things, and they have finally come up with a system where, he'll just pop thoughts into her head, and she prefers that to all the, what she calls the spooky things. Different strokes for different folks. So if you like something that seems like a sign, make sure you tell them. If you're not receiving signs and you say, I don't know if you can try harder to get me some sign, please do. They're trying too. They're learning too. There are some souls in heaven that are just better engineers. They just know how to play with things better than others. And then, like I said, others are just more concerned with guiding you. So number one is assume they love you. Number two is please assume they hear you. Now, number three is a process that I like to teach people because it's so simple. And if you persist with it, you will eventually develop a more visceral connection with them, meaning you might feel them, literally feel them. And it's very simple. I'll just share it with you. Take like a minute or two a day or several times a week, but whatever time you do it, be consistent. Kind of tell them, you can say it out loud or telepathically, okay, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 p.m., I'm going to sit with you. And if you're not perfectly timed, it's fine, but close. Set a timer on your phone or your microwave or whatever you set it on, and only do this for 1 or 2 minutes because I don't want you getting frustrated with it. And that's your time together. And your only job is at the beginning of this, you just sit there and you think of a memory that makes you happy. This is not the time for grieving. Just temporarily for 1 or 2 minutes, you put the grief aside and you make a strong decision. I'm going to think of a memory that makes me happy. And the reason for that is, energetically speaking, it raises your vibration. It makes it a little easier for them to make contact. So, at first it may take a while, but come up with something. Almost everybody has some funny memory or maybe even a picture that makes you happy. But you get that in your head and you just sit there and feel that feeling of love for them, because love is a vibration that does two things. Spiritually, it elevates you. And biologically, it puts your heart in a state of coherence, which means your heart and your brain are now in sync. The heart's sending the brainwave signals to calm down. It makes you a better receiver biologically. So we think of something we love, we feel that feeling of love, and then the rest of this minute or two is up to your dear one in spirit. And their job, and you just tell them this, your job is to try to make some sort of contact with me. And we're not even looking for words or conversations yet. So you sit there the rest of the time and you just scan your body and you just notice, do I feel anything different? Do I feel my heart expand more? Do I feel peace? Some people have palpitations. Some people feel little hot spots on their hands or their arms or their heart. One guy kept playing with his mom's hair and she would feel like these itchy tingles on the top. Sometimes you feel nothing. Even if you feel nothing, your only job is to just scan this for the minute and then to report back to them at the end of your time and say, I felt nothing yet. Or I think I felt a little warmth on my left elbow. Or I had a minor heart palpitation. Whatever you feel, you just report back. You let it go without attachment, and then you do it again the next time. And the reason for this is you're elevating your vibration as much as you can, and they're trying to get through, and they're messing around with energy. It's kind of like those old-fashioned radio dials where they're trying to figure out how to fine-tune. And they might not know how their energy comes through and is perceived by your physical body. So that's why you report back to them. Now, don't get frustrated. I've had people go for months with nothing. And then all of a sudden their loved one figures it out. And then the sensation gets stronger and stronger. When my grandpa died, you know, I'm a medium. I can talk to him in spirit, but I wanted to feel him. You know, I wanted a hug. It took him a while. I mean, I sat there, nothing. And after several months, I started feeling a slight warmth on my right hand. And then it got stronger and stronger and stronger. And now I can be sitting there watching a movie or something, and I literally feel my whole right hand get hot. And it's our little signal that when I feel my right hand get hot, it's Grandpa. And it's remarkably comforting, but it does take some commitment on both sides. Your kid in heaven has the time, so they'll be committed because they want to get through. They want to let you know that they love you. And if you can make the time for it, even if you're not religious about it, it will eventually lead to some form of contact. And it's very different. Some people have said they don't feel anything physical, but they'll just behind their closed eyes, they'll start seeing patterns or colors. You know, that's a possibility. Some people will hear a ringing in their ear, you know, like, because sometimes when frequency comes in, it creates a tone. Some people like me feel very physical sensations. A lot of you are feelers out there, so you'll feel something in your bodies. And if you keep doing it, that's kind of step one, and it can take a while. So just be patient, okay? And don't sit there for longer, because your brain will start going crazy. You'll start saying it's not working. You know, really limit yourself. There's a bit of reverse psychology to it too. If you limit yourself for a minute, you'll be looking forward to it the next day. And if you make yourself do it for too long, you'll be resisting it. So, you know, that's why I say just a minute. Once you start feeling that there's some contact there, which might take a while, the next step is to say, okay, let's amplify this energy. I would like to feel what you feel in heaven. And this, again, it's not the time to focus on the grief. It's the time to just, in a sense, just scan. So once, even if it takes 6 months, you know, once you finally have a little bit of contact, then you just sit there and you say, I'd like to feel what you feel in heaven. And you wait. And you see if you might feel a little expansion in your heart. You just breathe and you let them do their work. Because what they're doing, they can literally walk right into your energy field and start to, almost as if you ever see those little Russian dolls where one fits in the other and the other and the other. They can literally wrap their spirit around you, almost as if it's an embrace of spirit. And they can start to elevate your vibration eventually. As the more you relax into it, they elevate your vibration. And you can really feel some amazingly blissful sensations. And in time, so that would be like phase 1 is just any contact and giving them feedback. Phase 2 is allowing yourself to just receive. Just breathe with them and just let them work on your energy field. And phase 3 would be eventually to say, okay, I'd like you to give me, you know, some answers here or some dialogue. And you just ask a simple question at first, yes or no. Now this can take months for some, days for others, and years for some. So I'm not going to try to set you up for expecting it's a quick process. But if you follow these steps, then when you get to the third phase of it, where you say, I'm going to ask you a simple question, you're in an elevated space, you feel peaceful, you feel good, you can kind of feel them wrapped around you. You'll get a thought or a feeling or a picture popping into your mind. Now, sometimes these phases aren't in sync. You know, you might get the pictures and thoughts first, but I'm just laying out a process that I know works because it's worked for tons and tons of people over the years. It takes patience, it takes commitment, it takes a lot of patience because I know you desperately want contact, but we're learning to raise our vibration. We're learning to surrender a bit more. We're learning to surrender to their love and let them do some of the work. And for a lot of you who took care of your kids, it's sometimes hard to, you know, in a sense, say, all I have to do is sit and receive. And they're going to take care now of getting through. And so it takes a little shifting and it takes a little time to create this. But over time, I've had people develop wonderfully telepathic relationships with their children. It's like learning a foreign language. At first, we just bumble through it. And secondly, we try to run it through our little translators, and eventually it becomes very native to you. It's a language of energy that we're learning. It's the language of spirit. It's the language of feelings. So if you just do these things step by step by step, very patiently, eventually you're going to have contact, and eventually you're going to start trusting that you're getting messages from them. And this works whether it's your child, your grandparents, your parents. I mean, it will work with anybody in spirit, angels, Jesus, you know, he gives good hugs. And for those of you who are of that persuasion, but it's, well, really for everyone, but I don't want to force my views on anybody. Sorry. So anyone, your dog, I've had my dog make contact with me after the dog passed, and lots of kids will come and show me the family pets are with them. So you just sit there and you do this process. They want to make contact with you. They want to help you. They will guide you in all sorts of crazy ways, and you might not even know you're being guided. I was just sharing with Elizabeth beforehand. I have one client whose son passed, and he's so funny. I will all of a sudden get the urge, I need to go to Lowe's now. You know, I might be in the middle of writing my newsletter, but I gotta go to the hardware store now, and I'm not paying attention because I'm focused on other things, but it feels so strongly I should go now. So I've learned, I get up and I go to the hardware store, and there are his parents. And then another day I get the feeling I should go to the grocery store now, and I get up and there are his parents at the grocery store, and he's just constantly orchestrating these cute little meetings that uplift everybody involved. And some kids are, you know, more active in that respect. Others are, you know, really helping a sibling. I've seen many kids who pass, and they're just wanting so badly to help, you know, their sister or brother or whoever it is down here also. They tend to want to help everybody, but they're going to work with the ones that are most open to them first, because, you know, if you were trying to get in a building, you'd pick the doorway that's easiest to open. And that's really what they're doing. It doesn't mean they love anyone any less. It just means that they you know, they're going to pick the path of least resistance. So try not to try too hard when you're doing these exercises. Just follow them step by step. It'll be on YouTube. You can write it down. But it's just very simple. But if you're trying to make contact, you know what? We're in our brains then. We're thinking too much, and our heart's not as involved. So feeling that feeling of love and just observing is far more effective than, you know, like squeezing our heads and really trying to see if we're getting anything. You know, it's just kind of a simple act of observing. Kind of like you just scan the yard and see if everything's in order. You know, you scan your body. And they're very funny though. If you start this process, you may notice all sorts of other coincidences and little signals happening, because they like the contact, and your willingness to work at it really does open the door for them to do all sorts of crazy things. I've seen people who get feathers. I've seen birds showing up at the windows and knocking. I've seen children's toys going off in the middle of the night. You know, there was a Elmo toy one lady had, and in the middle of the night, it would always say, "I love you," you know, just right in the middle of the night. I've had spirit ring my doorbell at 3 a.m. I told him to stop it because it freaked me out, you know, to jump out of bed. But, you know, they can do that. When my grandfather died, I had the old dial phone way back when, you know, and it would go chirp, chirp. One lady's loved one had worked for FedEx, so she kept seeing 24/7 pop up on her phone. Her particular spirit was very talented. I don't know why they can't give us text messages yet, but I'm sure some days they'll figure that out, and I can't wait. Right now, I joke that when you see a license plate message, some of you have seen this, you'll be driving along thinking about something, and then a car with a license plate that's so pertinent to whatever you were thinking drives by. I call those angel text messages. I had spirit once tell me I was being very stubborn, and I got stuck behind a car that said well loved, WLLVD, and the next one said STBRN1, stubborn one. So they play with you that way. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's songs that you've, you know, had meaning for you, or that they had meaning. Sometimes you'll be down in the dumps and one of their friends will just suddenly call you out of the blue, and you'll think, how did they know to do that? They don't even know why. But it's your child in heaven that's given them a, you know, they like the little Facebook term, poked them, you know, that sort of a thing to do that. So making contact with spirit is largely their job, while our job down here is to, as much as we can, take these pauses when we're in a higher energy of love. Allow yourself the grief. I'm not by any means saying stuff your grief. That's just not right. You know, ride the waves of it. I talk to angels and they say, when you have a wave of tears, get a bath towel, forget the Kleenex, and really soak it. And just let yourself feel. I know you know this, but it's just so important, because these things become bottled up and they become blocks to hearing, because if we don't allow the heart to have its flow, then we get plugged up, you know, then we get bottled up. Then we actually have a lower vibration simmering all the time. Better to have a good cry and then think of the love and then make contact than to try to stuff feelings. Stuffing feelings does not lead to a good end biologically or spiritually. So allow yourself. And in the middle of one of those deep waves, remind yourself that even though it feels like this will feel miserable forever, that even after a long winter, there is spring. Nature is that way. Even our psyche is that way. I'm not saying your life will ever be the same. I'm not saying it will ever not hurt. But I am saying that if you just ride those waves with a sense of faith and trust, what's going to emerge for you is a whole new relationship with your child, which really is what seems missing when they die. And once that relationship starts becoming stronger and stronger, then it's almost fun in a weird way, because then, you know, it's kind of like you just never know what they're going to come up with. And as one of the kids has pointed out to me many times, you know where I am now, you know, because a lot of your kids, you didn't know where they were, you didn't know what they were doing, or some of them had challenges that, you know, made them less communicative. But in heaven, they want to connect. So once that relationship begins to be established, there's light and there's hope, and they actually do help you with your life. Now, another question I get frequently is, what do they want me to do? And the answer is almost always 100% live your life. Live it to the degree that you can. Enjoy it. Live it fully. Because in heaven, there's an appreciation for the gifts of life, even when life is hard. I mean, obviously, we're in a pandemic. It's not the nicest time on earth. But from spirit, all I can hear from spirit is, oh my gosh, look at how people are connecting more deeply. Look at how nature is healing. Look at how people are getting creative. You know, look at how they're starting to understand us. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, you're connecting remotely. You don't need to touch a body or see a body to believe that there's a connection. You know, we're doing it via internet now, but that's a step towards telepathy, really. So they are looking at this amazing opportunity here, you know, even when we're in the dredges of it. It's a different viewpoint. So they want us to live our lives and live as fully as we can. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go cliff diving or whatever it is, whatever that means for you to live fully. For some of you, it's living quietly and being kind to one another. For others, it's focusing on the kids that remain in the family and assisting them in their growth. You know, for Elizabeth, it was forming a whole organization, for example. But they're not asking things of you. They want things for you. When you feel the love that's in heaven, you lack nothing. That's the love that we all seek to feel on this earth. It's hidden behind everything. Everybody that we love is a window into that love that we feel in heaven. It's a doorway into that love. Every pet that we love, every plant that we love, every vision that we love is just really a view into that heavenly love. So the angels say what they really want for you is to feel even a fraction of what they're feeling. They want you to enjoy your life. They will help you with crazy stuff at times. I had one lady, I'll never forget this beautiful Filipino lady, and she was devastated, obviously. Her son was involved in drugs, and he committed suicide, he said, because they were going to murder him. And he wanted his mother to know where his body was. And that's horrific. But at the same time, he thought it was very well planned out. So, I mean, it was so painful, to say the least. And so we worked with her a while, and she started getting messages from him eventually, which helped tremendously. And then she got hilarious, because once she started really making contact with him, she put him to work. That's when she got a little mad at him, actually, because how dare you do this and leave me? So she got pissed off at him, but she knew it was okay, and she knew he wouldn't take it wrong. So she started giving him all sorts of jobs that she felt would make up for what he did. And I'll never forget, she told him, I need a new car. You've got to get me a new car. And she comes into my office, several months later. She's like, oh my God. And I started laughing. I said, cars? She and her husband had gone to Vegas, and they had some sort of contest in Vegas where you could pull a purse out of a stack and win a car. And she was starting to grab one, and her husband, who had also learned to make contact, said, wait a minute, I'm getting the feeling it's that one. So they pulled this purse out. Well, they won 2 cars. So 2 cars, not one. So they got to sell one and get some more money. And so by then she decided she had forgiven him. But, it was just the cutest, dynamic between the two of them. And that's another thing is that, yes, sometimes you might feel anger and frustration, but they don't take it personally up there. They just understand. They really understand. So over time, they love it when we start asking for help. And different souls in heaven help to different degrees. And it has a lot to do with what you're here to learn. It has to do with what their skill level is and what they choose to do. It doesn't mean they don't love you. All your prayers don't get answered. But I do put my spirits in heaven to work all the time. I need help with this. I need help with this. I get up in the morning, and before the snooze alarm is done, I give them a to-do list of what I'd like help with that day. And in my case, it's not children for me, but it's relatives, angels. And you will get a far greater flow to your days and more coincidences and assistance and help if you're willing to ask. Now, I know for a lot of people, asking for help is new. It's very new. Because a lot of you are givers, a lot of you are caretakers, a lot of you are people that have, always done something for others. And to ask for help is kind of new. So don't be afraid of that if it's new to you, because heaven wants to help. The angels once told me, please give us a job. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. And your kids in spirit want to help. It's not distracting them from having fun. They can 1 minute be hanging out with buddies in heaven, because they all make friends up there too. And I know, Elizabeth, you got fantastic stories about that one. They've got tons of friends. And the next minute, when they sense you have a need, they're on it right there. It's not a problem. They tell me in heaven, when you want to travel, you just shut your eyes and think of where you want to be, and you open them and you're there. Because energy, being an energetic being, is a little different than this encumbrance of being a physical being where we have to get in a car or an airplane. Now, can they have those physical experiences in heaven? Yes. I just talked to a kid the other day that, and sometimes I just shake my head, because he had passed away in a motorcycle accident, but he was showing his mom, and I didn't know how he passed yet. He just told his mom he was having so much fun on a bike in heaven, and she was like, oh, and he says, well, I can't die again, and some of them are like so sacrilegious, and I have to almost like apologize for the way they're coming across, because they can be smart alecky still, some of them. But the point is, you can have a physical experience up there, and then you hear your loved one on earth, because it's like a text message that comes into the brain, and immediately they can be with you. They can be helping you. So it's not like earth where all of a sudden they have to get in a car or plane or anything like that. It's a different way of moving through space-time. The angels say quantum physics is beginning to nibble around the edges of this, but again, we've barely touched the surface scientifically of how these things work. But they want to help you. They want to love you. They're never mad at you if you're grieving too much. There's no such thing, if you're hurting, you're hurting. They just come love on you. Sometimes they'll just hold you while you're crying. So many times I've seen kids in spirit who see their parents crying, and they'll say something like, I saw you the other day when you were holding my picture, or whatever it was. They know the love in heaven that they feel, and therefore that they can offer you, is beyond description on earth. They have a whole new awareness of what love is. It's beyond human description. So you will be unconditionally loved, accepted. You will not be judged. They're not holding grudges. They may tease you. I've had kids come back and joke about how stubborn they were and how stubborn their parents were. But from there, they see it almost like you would think back on your childhood and see how you were defending your right to hold a stuffed animal, or whatever it is. That's kind of how they look back and see it, almost like, well, okay, so we were all a little childish, but we didn't know any better. So there's no grudges. But they want to communicate with you. And remember, your only job is to take a little time, get into a higher vibrational space, and then allow for them to do whatever they do and report back. Because the ways that they'll get through are as different as the amount of people in the world. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about dreams. Some souls are just really good at showing up in people's dreams. Some of them can only show up in the dreams of people who are peaceful and calm, and that's why they might show up to all your relatives and friends and not you. That doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means that they're better at kind of making a landing, in a smoother space. Some souls just aren't very good at it because, again, it involves a frequency match. During our sleep, we're out of our bodies. We're in a higher vibrational space. We're more peaceful usually, and it's easier for them to access us, but it still takes focus. And they told me for them to actually show up in a dream, they have to hold a focus of energy, very steady, very calm, very consistent. And not all of them are good at doing it. Some of them, their brains are all over the place still. I've talked to some kids who said, I couldn't focus on Earth. I can't focus up here. So again, that doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means that maybe that's not their skill set. You could play games with them. Like you can hold out two hands and say, okay, try to touch my left hand and let me see if I sense anything more on my left hand. And again, try not to get too frustrated when you're starting. It may take time, but you can play these little games. Or you can give them a little challenge and say, I'd like to see a rose or something next week if that's you. And one lady said, I was looking for flowers and waiting for someone to give me flowers. And then I realized I had a rose on Instagram and somebody sent me a present wrapped in rose paper. And so play with them, that playfulness, kind of like you're experimenting and you're testing and you're like a kid saying, let's see how we can do this. That's very helpful because they're very playful too in heaven. And if one thing doesn't work, try another. Just don't give up on yourself is what I'm saying. Don't give up. Don't assume they don't love you. That's number one through this whole discussion. Now, for some of you, there's another way you might try to make contact, and that's to sit with a journal and just write down a question, how are you doing today? And start writing stream of consciousness and see if at some point your words begin to feel like they're being replaced by a higher stream of thought. That will work for some of you. That's not for everybody, or you can type it in a computer journal. And years ago, I was starting to talk to angels and I would type in a question and I'd get in a very floaty space by just getting calm. And then I'd start typing stream of consciousness and beautiful things would eventually come through. So again, I'm just offering you kind of the variety pack in terms of how to get through. And the best thing to do is pick the methodologies that feel most exciting to you and comfortable to you. Pick the things that feel fun. Because again, fun, happiness, joy, even a sense of wonder or a sense of let's try it, those are all higher vibrations. Not to replace the grief, but just when you're in that space of trying to connect, you want to try to reach a higher vibration for that time period. Over time, they'll figure you out and they'll be able to get through anything. Some kids are already good at that. Some can just overwhelm you with peace when you're crying. But they're not, they're like I said, they have different engineering capabilities, and it really takes some energetic technology for them to learn how to match your frequency. And that's really all it is. The receiver and the sender of a radio station have to match in order for you to get the signal. The remote has to be on the channel that's being broadcast for the television to display the signal. So you're trying to be in as high a space as you can when you're trying to connect, and they're trying to match that. And it's going to take a little practice. And it's not at all bad to grieve, because when you're grieving, you're just clearing the pipe so you can, reach that next plateau. And your kids are funny. They have a larger plan in terms of helping you. They often tell me that for a parent, before we come to Earth, we make some plans for our classes on this Earth. And many of you parents who have lost children have in some way had a love that is really like God's love, that says, I will love you no matter what, to your kids. I will love you even if you don't last forever on this Earth. I will love you even if you leave early. And they've said to you, okay, maybe I'm going to try to stick around, but if I have a plan to leave, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to take you up with me. So there are agreements made before we're born that are part of our lessons that are not easy, but they frequently have nothing but the utmost respect for you as their parents, knowing that at some point before your souls all came to this Earth, you made a brave choice to have kids that might not stick around forever. Some of them had a plan to leave early. Some of them did not. It was just a possibility. But in any case, as a parent, agreeing to come to Earth and have this child, at some level, you had the courage, they said, to know that this was a possible outcome. And they respect, I almost want to cry because I'm feeling the respect from spirit and from your kids that they have for you as a soul, for allowing for that. They often tell me that if it weren't for you, they would never have understood the true nature of unconditional love, that you can love them. Some of you have lost kids who are addicted or troubled. They're so, so grateful to you for loving them in spite of themselves. Others who died in what looked like accidents often were the ones that, had a plan before birth to come and help elevate your spirit into a higher level of awareness. Because, somebody's in my head now and says, well, that's the game on earth, isn't it? Finding out that there's no death and finding out that we're all connected to spirit and we're all connected to each other. So not an easy lesson, but they have such respect for you all. And Elizabeth, do you know of any common questions that people might ask? Because if anyone has any, I'm willing to answer.
Yes, they do. Actually, there are several questions that people have been asking. One of the moms is asking, she said that she gets tingling at the top of her legs, and it's not necessarily when she is thinking of her son, but she's wondering if that could possibly be her son.
It is, and I'm here. I'm terrible with names, you guys, so I'm very sorry about that part. But I am hearing, yes, I'm helping you move forward.
Okay.
It's kind of like, let's get going, almost like he's making her legs tingle with, like, let's keep moving forward together.
And Alicia was asking about the different clairs, and she said she thinks that maybe the clairsentience is maybe the easiest one to access. Is that correct?
For some people, there's for people who don't know what we were talking about, most of you do, but there's clairvoyance, which is like seeing visions or dreams or pictures in your head. There's clairaudience, which is hearing words either in or outside of your head. There's clairsentience, which is just knowing things. And there's claircognizance, which is feeling. So in my experience, it's the feeling and the knowing sense that are the two most prevalent. So yes, some people will just know things, like you just know, you think about somebody and then the phone rings, and the feeling sense is that sense of like feeling visceral feelings in your stomach, your gut instinct, your body. So yeah.
Well, and I just want to say too that everyone is saying that this is just so wonderful, because you're giving us a step-by-step guide to be able to connect with our kids. And so many people have written that this is just so helpful to them. And just being able to know first, also people are asking if this is recorded because they want to share it with other people, which is wonderful to be able to do that. And let's see, I'm just looking here. I love the fact that you were talking about how funny they are. I mean, our kids are very, they're comedians, and they're constantly doing things to make us laugh as well, and to shake us out of that sadness. But I also love the fact that you explained to everyone that none of our kids grieves with us. They're grieving by holding us and helping us, but they aren't sad. They're never sad.
Even I've talked to kids who were murdered. I mean, and you would think out of all the people, that they'd be holding a grudge, and one stands out, but he's very iconic for the opinion, of a child that was murdered. He's like, I'm in heaven and that dude's in hell. And he's right, that the person who was murdered is in heaven and the killer is living in a state of perpetual hell.
Yeah.
And that's how they look at it, because to do an act like that, you've got to be in hell. And they are not worried about vengeance. They are not worried about justice, because they know that there is justice. They know that the justice ultimately is that when this soul who did it comes to the other side, they're going to see and feel the effects of their deed for everybody involved. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not punishment. It's just a natural choice consequence. And one of them said, and again, sometimes they're so sacrilegious, and I'm just like, do I have to say this? But this was a young man who had been murdered, and he said to his mom, he was kind of flip about the whole thing. He said, I didn't know when to shut my mouth. I just kept threatening to turn this guy in. He says, I was just so fucking mad at him, and we've had a feud for lifetimes, if you believe in that. And anyhow, he was going on, excuse the language. And then finally, he said to his mom, he goes, Mom, who do you think's going to greet him when he kicks the bucket? He goes, I'm going to be like, how's that working for you? So he was so funny. But he said, then he got serious, and he said, no. He said, this particular soul, and he had a lifetime's worth of feuding. And he said, and I will be here to educate him on the fact that you can't lord death over anybody, because nobody really dies. And I'll be here to help him understand the effects of his choice. And I'm going to be here really to try to lift him up so he never does this to anyone again. And I just bawled because I mean, that's a love we don't know on earth. You know, that's just like amazing. So they're not hurting at all. They don't have regrets. And the reason is when you're in heaven, and I can vouch for that after spending 30 seconds in that light. I only spent 30 seconds in it. You can't regret a thing when you're in that space. And I'm going to give you a little taste of that love towards the end here. I'll explain that in a minute. But it feels amazing. And they are not holding regrets. They don't feel like they've missed anything, because keep in mind, everything we want to experience on earth is because we perceive that to be an experience of love. Whether it's having kids, marrying, whatever it is, we want that because we want to feel love. But when you're in heaven, you feel a love unlike anything you can ever feel on earth. So they don't have regrets like we do. These are precious experiences on this earth. Nobody's going to ever negate that. But it's a different perspective. And so all they have is love for you. That's all they want to do. A lot of them are having a lot of fun. They have social lives. You know this. Your kid goes hiking, right? Anyhow, they have parties. They have times with relatives. But you on earth, the ones they left here, are their number one priority, because you're the one they have the agreement with. You're the one that they have the classes with, even across the veil, to help lift up and grow. And that's another reason why they're not going to leave you. They're not going to leave you. You guys are in school together, and they're very committed to you in heaven because they understand the lessons, whereas maybe on earth they did or didn't. So please don't ever worry about your child. That's what they beg of you. They said, let us help you. Put us to work. And it took me years to really take spirit up on that one. And now if I need something on sale, I'll say, hey, can you find me a pair of white pants that are $10 in the next 4 days, please? And then I'll get the urge to go to a thrift store, and there it is. You know, it's just, it's you know, even silly stuff like that. And again, different souls are better at different things. But tell your kid, if you don't know how to do it, get the angels on it, please. You know, please poll your friends and see how you can help me with this one.
That is just beautiful. And I just want to ask a question that's in the sidebar, and I know what your answer is going to be, but I know that it's a very important question. I have a mom from South Africa whose son just passed very recently, and she's asking about reincarnation, and she's worried that her son is not going to wait for her. Could you please address that for her?
What's her first name real quick?
Simon is her first name.
He says, are you kidding? I'm not coming back anytime soon. No. Most of the time they have a commitment to you, to be with you. Now, once in a blue moon, he's going to be with you the whole way, he's saying. But once in a while, I have seen an interesting thing where they feel so bad about the way they left, and they see their family grieving. And I'll give you an example. One woman lost her daughter, and she had another one on earth. And the daughter really came through, and she said she had given up. She was in a bad marriage and she didn't want to leave it. And she wasn't blaming the husband. She was blaming herself for not learning the lesson to leave the situation. But she saw how badly her family missed her. And so she talked through me and said, may I come back as your daughter? To her sister. And lo and behold, within a year, they had the baby girl with all the characteristics of the sister. And they looked in those eyes, and it's kind of like a mind blower. And the sister actually, or the woman's daughter came back as her granddaughter. Now that's not typical. A lot of times they want to stay in heaven. They want to, guide you. That's the agreement. But every now and then I'll see this where they incarnate in the family later on. And I haven't seen it a lot where they incarnate elsewhere, while you're still alive. That's far less common. I mean, it can happen once in a blue moon, but very rare, very rare. So I hope that helps.
That's perfect. And she's saying thank you in the sidebar. And that's exactly what I expected you to say. Plus, they can exist in many different dimensions at the same time. They can be here, they can be there. And there's a bigger answer to that whole question.
Well, there is, because we're all really multidimensional. Years ago, someone said something about past lives, and out of my mouth, before I even understood this, was we're living them all at once. So, but we process them sequentially while we're on Earth.
Well, and we were just listening to Tina Powers the other night, and she was saying that there actually may not really be reincarnation, but there were just existing in different dimensions at the same time. And so there's a whole nother.
Yeah, technically speaking, it's where our soul wants to put its focus.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because I once asked, like my grandpa sent a piece of his soul back as my dog. I didn't know that could happen, but it did. And I asked the angels once, please explain this because they're both in heaven now. And he said it's just a matter of where the soul places its focus. It can focus on the role as the dog. It can focus on the role as your grandpa. They said think of the soul as the actor, and the lifetimes as all the roles that they're playing all at once.
Yes, well, there's so much to explore in this wonderful afterlife community.
Yeah.
There's so many different things to learn, but
Yes,
thank you
it's
for
really
explaining that in a very beautiful and compassionate way. And Blanca is asking if you are or were an avionics engineer, because her son is an avionics, or was an avionics technician. So
Yes.
she was just wanting to clarify that.
I absolutely was. I worked for Honeywell for 8 years on the MD-80 and then the 777, Boeing 777 airplane. Flight control systems. Well, it's all energy.
Well, and the main thing that shows all of us is that there are so many people who are very highly educated who later in life transition into this role of becoming a medium, psychic medium, evidential medium, as well as so interested in the afterlife community. I mean, Suzanne Giesman, as I know you know Suzanne from the conference and everything too, and she was working with different presidents of the United States, and here she is now writing books and touring, talking about the afterlife, which is just amazing as well. But anyway, I am so excited about the gaze that you're going to be doing, and I don't want to keep you too long. And so I want to make sure, I know that you guys have questions, but
well, I have a little more time. It's up to you how much time you want to spend, because I can spend a little more if you want. If there's any other questions that
Anne has a very exciting surprise for us, so I don't want to miss it. But Denise is asking if souls have a body. Could you?
Souls have in the dimension of heaven, they appear to each other to have bodies. So they feel very solid. They can hug. They tell me whatever you enjoyed on earth, you can enjoy in heaven. If you liked eating, you can eat. If you liked golfing, you can golf. If you liked like the one riding your motorcycle, you can have that experience. It seems very real, but they explained to me it's like the most real virtual reality you've ever had, because whatever you choose to picture yourself enjoying, you'll enjoy. So yes, they very much can have that life. They also know, however, that if they want, they can experience themselves as energetic beings too. So say they want to show up in the realms, higher realms, they can have that experience. It's when we go into a deep meditation, sometimes we can really experience ourselves as energetic beings.
And that's beautiful. That's exactly, well, it's a beautiful way of thinking of it. And Anna is asking, and this is a good question, do we continue to have a life with our sons when we or our children when we transition to heaven? Do we recognize, would they recognize that she is their mom?
Absolutely, 100%. They're there waiting for you. And there's usually quite a celebration, because it's an acknowledgement of the growth that was done. It's like we're all graduating, it's like a graduation party. And you can, at that point, free will reigns. At that point, you can stay in heaven for as long as you like. You can come back together in different roles. You can come back together as parent-child. You can choose different paths, but that's a choice that's made between all souls involved. So it's never, you're never forcibly separated from your children in any dimension ever.
That's beautiful. And I have Cynthia asking if our children can help us with our finances. I guess that if they're like this boy who brought the 2 cars to the parents, that's a possibility, right?
Yeah. Now and again, it's not always that they'll just give you money, because maybe you have lessons to learn about tapping into that frequency of abundance. But sometimes I've seen it run the gamut. I've seen the kid who helped his parents win 2 cars. I've seen kids who guide their parents to better jobs. I've seen kids who guide their parents to people who can assist them in managing their money. I've seen kids who really guide their parents to learn the law of attraction so they can manifest more money on their own. And that it just depends what we signed up for in terms of our classes. But I do know that they want us to focus on the abundance on earth. And abundance isn't just money, but to look around and say, I have an abundance of love in my heart. I have an abundance of friends, or I have an abundance of talent, or, maybe I have a nice home. And the more we can focus on abundance, the higher the vibration we're in, and then the more they can help us. So there are a lot of different answers to that one, but the bottom line is yes, it just might come. The help might come in many different ways. Sometimes it's a handout, and sometimes it's a hand up, is what I like to say.
Well, and it's nice that you were talking about the fact that we're both in school, that we're in school here and they're in school there. And I have a friend whose wife said in the very beginning of this journey to me that our kids are home and we're still in school. So
Yeah.
it's true that they are where they're supposed to be. We're still here doing,
and they're still learning
doing
how to
things.
help us, you know, so it's kind of like I jokingly call them angels in training, you know, they're learning how to help us on earth. So their lessons are different now, but they're learning how to help raise our vibration and help us into deeper understandings and experiences here.
That's beautiful. And Blanca is asking, if you adopted your child, will they be with their biological parent or an adopted parent?
They'll probably check in on their biological parent just because, you know, they might have a curiosity or they might care, but they tend to, their loyalties and agreements tend to be mostly with the parent that they signed up to grow with. So that would be you.
That's beautiful. And let's see, I'm just looking to see if there are other people who have written questions that I've missed. Let's see, and I'm sorry, my dogs are barking right now, so I'm going to mute myself. I'm quarantining with 4 other people here and with 5 dogs and 1 bird. So it's always difficult to be able to find a time when everybody is silent in the house and not making any noise.
That's one of the things I love about Zoom. We're all getting more real.
Yes, no, that's true.
Love it. And it's fine. Dogs,
fine.
Kids, everybody's welcome. Okay.
Well, anyway, and sometimes, like today, we have the pool guy come in the backyard and the dogs bark because they really want to get out and say hi to him. So
don't worry, I've had a lot of dog conversations on Zoom.
But anyway, it looks like I've gotten let's see. Oh, exit points. Kathy is asking about your opinion about exit points.
Yeah, I can speak to that directly. We're not fated to die at a certain point in our life. There are some souls that choose to die at a certain point. They know it before they come down. They might even say something to you a few days before, I just wanted to talk to you, or, you know, they might have a feeling around it. There are some that come in with certain exit points depending on where they're at. You know, maybe they say, if I start going downhill, you know, take me off the planet, because I don't want to go too far down and drag everyone down with me. They might say, after I learn a certain lesson, then I want to go. So it's not necessarily that it's bad, you know, it's very varied. And I can speak to that directly because, I think it was 2010, I started getting this weird feeling to pray to live a long life. I mean, I never worried about death. I know what's over there, but I just started praying like crazy. And a friend started checking my car tires out of the blue, and people started calling me and saying, are you okay? And I was like, this is freaking me out. So I changed my tires. I got brand new ones. And within a month, I had 2 near-miss car accidents. And the angels told me afterward that before I was born, I was very reluctant to come to Earth, apparently. And they said I had decided I probably wouldn't live past that age, but that I was liking it down here and I had made a different decision to stay. And I have had a few other points in my life where I know I could have died, but because I was in a space where I really wanted to live, I've stayed on Earth. Now, that doesn't mean your kids didn't want to live. It's so varied. You know, it could just be that they made arrangements before they were born that, you know, once I get to this point in my development, or if I start going south, I'm leaving, or for a variety of reasons. So there's no one answer to that, but there are different exit points. It's not always etched in stone.
Well, along the same lines, we have another question about suicide as an exit point, and then also about cocooning after a child passes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Passes.
Well, suicides, I'll just, God, I'm so sorry to all of you who have lost kids through suicide, because I've lost friends to suicide, and it's not a child even, and it's hard. The good news is, and I grew up in a religious dogmatic tradition that said they all go to hell. That's not true. It's not true at all. They will oftentimes end up in a little bit of an in-between space, some of them, and go, oh my goodness, you know, but so many of you are praying for them, and you're here, you love your children. And those prayers, one of them said the other day, it was a kid that committed suicide, and he said the prayers were like a tidal wave of love that pushed him into the light. It was beautiful. It was all the love on earth that gets them into the light, the prayers. And so the minute the second they even say, you know, is there a light? Is there a God? Is there something bigger? There's that light for them. So suicides are welcomed home with open arms. They are not judged. You know, I certainly learned something different. They're not quarantined, you know, in limbo or anything. They're just welcomed home. And it's your prayers that often help them get there. Now, some of them just did something rash and the light's there immediately. Some of them were very, very angry and didn't believe in anything good. But on the other side, you know, it's very disorienting, obviously, if you kill yourself and they're looking around and all of a sudden they feel all that love coming towards them. Because remember, you can't block love on the other side, and they want to go into the light. So I would say that nearly every suicide I've looked at is in the light. And if not, we pray for them and they go into the light. I've actually been witness to seeing people go into the light. And it's the prayers. They, you know, the love. They feel the love. They can't block it and push it away like they did on earth. So I'm so sorry, you know, if that's the way it happened. It's devastating. But even then, they can find, you know, a much better and more loving reality for themselves. You know, they love themselves once they're in the light. They see that they're good people. They understand. I talked to one person who died. Is this okay if I go on a little bit?
Yes, it's okay with
I talked
me.
to one
Yes.
person who died, and the first thing this was not a child, but this was still illustrates the point. The first thing he said to his person sitting across from me was, "You'll never believe where the angels took me. They took me to a frickin' tiki bar and told me I should have just been the kind alcoholic that I was and not judged myself so badly," because he judged himself so much he committed suicide. And they said, "Look, you know, you had a habit, but you were a good guy and people loved you." And that's the unconditional love in heaven. No judgment whatsoever. Just, look, we loved you even though you drank. Yeah, there's higher behaviors, but you know, you were a good person. So they are, I tell people, angels relentlessly love us. You know, in heaven, you're loved relentlessly. Things that would cause any human being on earth to judge. No judgment. Just look at your light. Look at what's good inside of you. Look at that kernel inside of you that was trying to come to the surface. So suicides are welcomed home with open arms. Now, as far as cocooning, the second question, that is a very healthy response, I think. Some of you, it depends on your personality. Some of you will need to be around others, but some of you will just want to kind of, you know, wrap a blanket around you and stay within for a while. Cocoon, but invite your children to cocoon with you. Do those exercises little by little by little. Life has a natural course that we don't actually control. Just like a seed can sit in hard, cold, frozen ground forever and cocoon. And then as soon as warmth and love start to come back to you, you'll come back to life. For some people, it's days, some years. But please don't judge yourself in your grief. There's not a right and a wrong way to grieve. There's just a way that works for you. And your children certainly do not want to force you out to being social before you're feeling like it. And I know everybody has different viewpoints on that, but it's unconditional love in heaven. They're not about to judge you either.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. It might, what I think she might be asking though is talking about cocooning and healing once our child is passed for them. What is your opinion of that? Is that something that
the parent cocooning or the child?
The child who's passed, meaning.
Oh, the child's not cocooning. They're in heaven having a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was thinking it would be more natural for parents to cocoon, but
well, it sounds like a great idea. I think that's a wonderful idea, especially
the kids, they get into life. It's like they hit the ground running. They want to help you. They want to socialize. They come to life in an even greater way in heaven.
It's beautiful.
We all do, actually. Heaven is we feel more alive than we've ever felt before.
One other question, and then maybe we can move on, but Aisha is saying, I saw a blinding light 3 days after my son passed. What was that? That
was the light that your son saw when he went into heaven. And he gave you just a glimpse of how beautiful it was. So, wow. Pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, and we have one more question from Anna as well. My son transitioned by accidental overdose. Why would he exit when he seemed so happy, had a new girlfriend, was in love, and beginning his new business? And Aisha is saying that, thank you, that is what she thought. So
okay,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I just
I'm checking in with Anderson to see what that was about. Oh, well, he said he said by indulging in the overdose, he was starting to, in a sense, he viewed that as losing ground. He viewed that he had gained so much ground, but that by any indulgence in substances again, it wasn't the path he wanted to go down. He didn't want to, that was his soul saying, I've graduated to a certain level and I don't want to go down. I don't want to go down that path again. In other words, he wanted to leave on a higher note. He was afraid he might slowly, get caught up in that again. So he's apologizing to you, but he's doing great, by the way. And he's very vivacious, and he's determined to make sure his girlfriend gets somebody new down here. And anyhow, he's just quite active.
Well,
he's heating me up. I'm getting all pink. Yeah.
thank you. Goodness. And so anyway, why don't we go ahead and get started on the gaze, if that's possible. I'm really
absolutely.
looking forward to this, and I thank everybody for your wonderful questions as well.
Yeah, well, my heart to you, all of you. I'm going to do something that kind of happened to me by accident. I'll put it that way, or at least I thought. I had clients tell me for 4 years about a gentleman from Croatia named Braco, B-R-A-C-O, and he gazes. And what I mean by that is he surrenders to love, whatever you consider the source of love to be. And he looks at people with his eyes, and when they look back, they feel that profound love of heaven. And in his case, people have healed from fatal cancers and all sorts of things. The first time I saw him, my angels told me that I would be doing that, and I freaked out, of course. Said, what do you mean? But over time, I've started to do that. And again, I'm not as powerful as he is, but people have felt that peace and that love. Some have healed. A few people have actually seen their loved ones in the energy. Now, I can't promise that. But what's going to happen is I'm going to turn some music on, and I'm going to go into a bit of a trance with my eyes open. And when the music's on, you just look in the eyes and just, if you can, quiet your mind entirely. If you can't quiet your mind, just simply say, I receive, I receive, I receive to yourself throughout it. And just pay attention to your feelings. And my intention here only is to share a very profound love with you, so you can have a little taste of what it feels like there. And that's okay with everybody. I'm gonna get some music going. I've got it over here. I think this will work. I have one device playing music and looking at another one. So let me get that going, and just about, 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll close up, okay? Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope that helped people feel a little more love from heaven.
Could I just say something about that?
Absolutely.
My gaze went up above your head, and I could see the faces of all our kids kind of switching through your face. It was the most amazing thing because I was not looking directly into your eyes, but directly above them, and it just kept switching through all of these kids.
I felt that. I felt like a revolving door energetically. That just touches me to the core that you saw that. Wow.
It was the most, I don't have a lot of these kinds of things happen either, Anne, but I could just see all of them, and they were all smiling so big. I mean, it was just amazing how happy they all looked. It was, anyway.
I feel like a pool with a bunch of people getting in and out. That's it. Yeah.
Well, and it started with Chelsea. I wasn't expecting Chelsea, my daughter. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can see her. And I know I've been told that she has long, dark hair. And then I started seeing all these other kids, and it just kept going. I kept trying to get Chelsea back, and there were all these other kids, which is fine.
It was kind of like move along, my experiences, everything goes white, but I can feel like the movement of the different spirits through the field. And at one point, even my desk lamp started flickering open.
Well, I have a lot of other people saying, wiping away the tears. I guess Claudia saw your gaze in Sedona, and she bawled. And then also, Garika is also saying that she saw a lot of different faces going through as well. Everyone's thanking you for that beautiful gift, which is just amazing. And what's really amazing is that as I'm seeing all these kids, I'm thinking to myself, am I going to be able to say that, or is everybody going to think I'm crazy? But I really did see all of the kids going through. They were all of the noses were different, all of the facial features, all of the eyes were different. And it reminded me, because I was making my silly avatar today on Facebook. Everybody's doing that. And so I was thinking, wow, these noses are all changing. The eyes are changing too. Cute. This is just like what I was doing this morning, making this avatar. But anyway, the most important thing that I think it lets all of us know is that they're all together. They
really are, and they love you so much. And I could, it's almost like somebody organized them, and they had a line that was good, like going like that. You know what you did at the end of your conference where everybody was going through the love line? I forget what you called it.
Yes, the angel wash. Yes,
that's what it felt like. It felt like a revolving door of spirits moving through.
Well, it was amazing, and everybody is saying how amazing it was. And I'm hoping, I don't know if you've done this on video before, but I hope that other parents will be able to watch this.
Well, I do it every month on Facebook Live.
Okay.
And people can find it on my website. I think the next day is June 7th, and I do 7 of them typically, like once every hour with a lunch break. And I usually give a little helpful talk on something spiritual before. And, it's free. I mean, it's just a public service. And they can check out Braco, who's very powerful, also braco-tv.me. And I've never met him, but I mean, he's got a
braco-tv.me. tv.me. And so this is the website, is that right?
Yeah, through the pandemic, he's doing it for free every day, 13 sessions. So
well, good.
If you need an extra dose of love, it's very healing and loving. And
well, that was truly amazing, and we just appreciate you coming and speaking to us so much today. This is so helpful, so uplifting, as everyone is saying in the chat box. And I wish that I could just keep this chat box so that I could give it to you after, but unfortunately it disappears with the recording. But thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, for being open. Thank you, because I know the pain you're in, and yet at the same time, I can feel the hope. I can feel the commitment you have to the relationship continuing, and your persistence will win eventually.
I know you're right. I know that everyone here is moving forward, and that our kids are going to be with us, and they're going to be helping us heal. And I want everybody to be able to say thank you to you. So if you would like to unmute yourselves and say thank you and goodbye to Anne, that would be wonderful. Is everybody able to do so? And thank you all. for
Thank you,
being here.
Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. I'm gonna cry. Thank you, everyone.
you.
So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad everyone is here.
Beautiful.